Welcome back, Leveling Up Nation. It is your host and success strategist, Brigham Blackham, and I have a very awesome guest today.
Even though I was committing to 2,000 words a day, which, by the way, sometimes I actually didn't, I found myself sometimes whipping out 8,000 words in a single day because all of a sudden, wow, started flowing, started getting into it. But it was only possible because I was willing to commit into the FQ3 music, honestly. What you're going to do is create your first chord, which is the nice, simple chord, easy chord. Then you're going to do a little bit of dissonance. Then you're going to do a little bit of conflict. And then literally the word is
Welcome back, Leveling Up Nation. It is your host and success strategist, Brigham Blackham, and I have a very awesome guest today. We are going to be talking about optimized storytelling, and he is an optimization expert. He goes into the C-level positions in all these different companies, helps people really get in alignment in their story, in every facet of their business so that they can make more sales, create bigger and better relationships, and have an amazing experience as a customer. And he creates cultures that are so much better because of his FQ3C framework. Now, if you're like, I never heard of FQ3C, you're like, well, you better tune in because we're going to find out how this applies to you, how this helps you monetize your message, get your voice out there, and be able to implement some amazing strategies to get a little bit better and to level up your life. So let's welcome Shane onto the call. Welcome, Shane. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for having me, Brigham. I really appreciate it and super happy to be here.
Absolutely. Well, Shane Laufman, I know online you say you go by Shane Lauf. Tell me a little bit of your backstory. Why do people not only need to hear you, but you're like, this is the message that's going to make a huge impact on people. Let's hear your why.
Oh, my why. All right.
Oh, yeah.
My story is I grew up dirt poor, a very dark background actually growing up. But that set the stage for me to become really, really motivated to learn how does money work, learn how does marketing work. I hated getting taken advantage of. It was just one of the most frustrating things. So instead of going to college, I decided to live life where I was going to get paid to learn the things I felt were going to make it so that I could get an edge in the knowledge and the application. And what was interesting is this was actually setting the stage for me to go on to do some pretty incredible things. One company, we went from 0 to 4 million in under a year. There was another time where I ended up becoming the youngest, at least to my knowledge, investment advisor facilitator for a Fortune 50 company. Again, no degree. And I think the most recent thing that was just really incredible, really fun, was writing a 62,000 word book that's a little over 300 pages in 16 days. And yeah, documented on Facebook. If you guys want to go there, you can check that out. But this all was coming to my why. At the end of the day, with all these different startups I've been part of, which is a little over 30 now, and just starting my own, having partners, it's just been a real challenge to try and figure out what is it really that happens behind the scenes, behind your behaviors, to make it so that you can unlock yourself to do those type of accolades. Because if you think about those different things I just mentioned, they seem pretty much impossible for the majority of the people. And what I wanted to do is showcase that, no, it's absolutely possible. I'm not smarter than the rest. I'm not some crazy high IQ individual. I actually used to be the bottom of the barrel when it came to social hierarchies. So I was beat up daily, almost committed suicide. I've gone all of those different routes. I've been homeless multiple times. So it's not about these edges, if you will, that a lot of people say it's all about. It really comes down to just, are you having the behavior that you need to get to where you want to go? And my why really came down to, once I figured out FQ3C and I explored this, I was like, oh my goodness, nobody's quantifying. Nobody's taking the feelings. Nobody's taking the actual information of what is real, what's truth, and bring it down to a level where you as an individual are able to unlock yourself, because we're being told it in this weird, obscure way. Lots of gurus one's going to tell you, hey, listen, all you got to do is be consistent. Consistency is key. Another person's going to tell you, oh yeah, you just need to do time management. Another person's going to tell you, oh, all you need to do is just think it and it will come. And it's like, listen, each one of those are important. Every single one of those pieces are part of that puzzle. But why is it that you're only being told that one or maybe three, when in reality, what I did is I was like, I need to figure out the truth. And when we dove really, really deep, and we took a very, very long time to figure this out, we reversed engineered Google's algorithm to start the chain of events to figure out that there's actually 12. There's 12 variables that you need. So it's not 1, it's not 3, it's not 5, it's actually 12. And they're always happening, always running, and it doesn't matter what goal you want to achieve, they are there. And we can also prove this as an effective model, because we've even had psychologists take our assessments, and these assessments help you see how complete your goal is for a first one. And so far, highest score we've had in terms of completion is 57% on the first try, by experts who say that they're like the best of the best when it comes to the SMART goal model, right? So that is actually the first key, is getting that goal down. You'll hear this over and over again, but what you won't have someone tell you is that you can actually quantify. You can actually tell yourself, am I actually coming to the table with a completed goal or not? And then from there, you finally can actually start looking at your own behavior against the demand of whatever the goal it is. When I was going into the book and creating that book in just 16 days, I had to sit down and be incredibly detailed. And that detail came down to FQ3C. I want to make sure that I had metrics. I want to make sure that I understand the value proposition, kind of like you just asked me about my life. I wanted to understand also my belief level of, okay, is this actually something I really truly believe I can do? I need to make sure that I understood the consistency required, and I needed to commit to that consistency. And then I needed to structure the world around me to ensure that, hey, listen, nothing's going to get in the way. And I did a lot of preparation before I pulled the trigger and put the first word on the pages, to ensure that I had the highest probability of success possible to make that happen. And here's even the kicker. We are so wired to, once we commit to something, that we want to finish it most of the time, or at least like about 70, 80% minimum. And so most people have trouble with either starting or finishing, not doing the medium part for, right? So if we're able to get started in a really good quality manner, and we are able to get things done more effectively and efficiently than we ever anticipated, then just comes down to that drive to complete it. And I think that these are all individual key points that you have to have, right?
Beautiful.
And ultimately, I do want to say that I actually gave myself 30 days to write the entire book. But because of this element of wanting to complete once you got started, even though I was committing to 2,000 words a day, which, by the way, sometimes I actually didn't, I found myself sometimes whipping out 8,000 words in a single day, because all of a sudden, wow, started flowing, started getting into it. But it was only possible because I was willing to commit into the FQ3C behavioral model. And that's what ended up driving me to the finish line, right? So that's a little bit about my why. I want to give it to everybody else. I want everybody to understand that, yes, you absolutely can. I literally used the book that I wrote to not only show you and tell you how it works, but I also took that to showcase that I did it right in front of your eyes. And we even have a case study built and baked into the book with an actual real conversation with, we call him Kent inside the book. And you get to see him transform immediately inside of a real conversation that was transcribed, right? So there's so many different cool things here that are going to help you in your storytelling, help you become more efficient. And the interesting thing is that all of our behavior, whether it's you, Brigham, or myself, or your clientele that you're looking for, we all have an FQ3C happening. So what you're really trying to do is you're trying to understand their FQ3C, so that then you can take your FQ3C and match them. It's almost like you have one person who's a magnet, another person's in a magnet, and you need to figure out the polarization so they all sudden click together, and then you have a full circuit happening, right? That's really what you're trying to do. And I'm not going to say that it's easy. It's actually very hard. Most people are taught from their childhood to just think about themselves, to think about their own well-being. We're not really taught, outside of maybe like sharing, we're not really taught how to try and put ourselves in somebody else's shoes, even though and FQ3C is your tool to be able to start doing that effectively and efficiently. And the sooner you can do that, the sooner you're going to be able to start making money, the sooner you're going to be able to start connecting with individuals, the sooner you're going to grow your network, the sooner that you're going to stop listening to just those, we're going to call them hook line that you're hearing all over the place. And you're going to start be able to filter for yourself the truth of what is required, what's demanded, where are you right now, what's the actual goal, and what's it going to take to complete it, and if you're willing to even commit to it or not.
Awesome. Well, here's what I'm hearing. You have a phenomenal model that you actually implemented within 16 days to write your whole book. And then not only that, you use your case study to, in real time, be able to show how this shifted this man. What was his name again? Carl? Was it?
Call him Kent in the book.
We call him Kent. Okay. Kent, like Kent Clark, whatever. He took off those glasses and now he became Superman after your process. So let's dive into this. How does this help us optimize our storytelling? How does this help us as speakers, as entrepreneurs, as people that want to get our message out there, be able to do so more effectively? And let's hear how you optimize storytelling, because you've written 3 different books. You've got a background in storytelling on stage, on podcasts. I've seen you online. That's how we became acquainted, was online, because of your output and your storytelling ability. So how did you do that? And how did FQ3C fit into that?
Yeah. So I actually was taught how to do storytelling because I entered into the financial world. Okay. And to bring a person through their story, that's the easiest way to get them to connect. That's the easiest way to get them to drive their emotions towards what they really should be doing. And it's a very difficult, it's a difficult thing to sit down with somebody and say, hey, listen, today we're going to talk about death. We're going to talk about what happens if you die today. We're going to talk about your amortization schedules, right? And so with that resistance, you have to be able to bring stories in order to make it so that there's a real connection, and then bring them to the point of, I'll call it an epiphany, that yes, this is actually what I need, and I'm willing to overcome the desires of what I want to secure that for me and my family, because their why is now bigger than the pain, right? It's, what do you want? Do you want to have the pain of change or the pain of regret? So I do want to say that I had a really good background of just being trained on how to do storytelling in the first place. It was only until later in, I'd say the last probably about 1.5 to 2 years, when I started really looking at like, okay, what are the check boxes? And that is actually FQ3C. So if we just look at FQ3C, frequency, quality, consistency, continuity, clarity, okay? If I want to tell you a story right now, I can create an analogy. And one of the most crucial things that we want to know is this real or not? Okay. So the reality is all in detail. So if I go to you and I say, hey, listen, there was some guy that I saw and he whipped out a chicken out of a hat. That doesn't feel real. Yeah. It doesn't seem real. But if I just add in a couple of details, hey, listen, there's this magician. His name is Jerry. You got to check him out. He's on YouTube. He's awesome. And I got to see him live. I was in Las Vegas. I was at the Bellagio, and in the middle of the foyer, he was doing a magic trick and he pulled out a chicken out of his hat. Now it feels real. Yeah. So there was frequency is what was built into that, right? The frequencies, there's data points that we can actually say this is what is true. And the truth is, there's a time, there's a place, there's a person, there's a name, there's an entity, there's an avatar, and there's positions of a hat. We know what a hat is, and a chicken, we know what a chicken is. These are just data points that allow us to be able to say true, not true, right? It's a filtration system. Going into Q, quality is actually made up of 2 variables. They're sub-variables. The reason why they're not independent is because they only can work really with each other to make anybody make a decision. Yeah. And how we define our quality. So the first one is value. The next one's belief. Okay. So now I have to bring in value and I have to bring in belief into this. Now, if you value the Bellagio, which everybody's trained to value the Bellagio, and also we value the Bellagio for what reason? It's because we value it for the sake of that's where entertainment happens. That's where the unbelievable things happen. I'm able to draw in value and belief simultaneously. So you're going to believe it more readily versus me saying, hey, listen, I was out in the middle of some cornfield somewhere and there was this magician. Yeah, exactly. You're going, huh? What's going on there?
Why are you in a cornfield? Isn't it corn maze? It's random. Okay.
Yeah, it's so random. Why a cornfield? So I'm able to bring in quality and the quality variable through value and belief, because I'm able to place you into a position where you in your mind go, oh, this is acceptable, this is reasonable, which is your belief. And also You value that location, you value what it can provide, as Las Vegas provides this experience and something that's bigger than yourself, a wow factor. So by placing him there, I capture my F, I capture my Q. Next, I'm able to move on to my consistency. The consistency is I need to make sure that whatever details I have in the beginning stay through the entire thing. If I deviate even one time, I think he's joshing me here. So that consistency is kind of our lie detector, is really what it is. It's a lie detector, and it's the lie detector according to the F and the Q, because you take FQ together. That's what creates your C, activated by time. Okay. I know you're taking notes. This is awesome.
No, I'm taking notes because I'm like, oh, I'm learning. Thank you.
Then you have continuity. So continuity, if you think about it, is everything surrounding the objective. And I am actually bringing in the continuity into this position, such as the fact that I said I was there. Now, if people take a look at the photos in my Facebook, if people take a look at some of the videos I've done in the past, some of my friends, people that I've connected with, it's very reasonable to assume that I have been there, especially because I have literally pictures of myself in front of the Las Vegas sign. So by me bringing in the story of me saying, I was there, I saw, all of a sudden the validity and the continuity piece is providing even more support of, okay, maybe Bellagio is real. Maybe this person's real. But what really makes it real is the continuity of me saying that I'm there, and then the whole world around me and all my support of all this data that's external now reinforces it even more, right? And then the last piece, which is clarity. You need to make it so there's a very, very clear beginning, a very, 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 very clear middle, and a very, very clear end. And a lot of times you want to talk about, of course, their kind of value proposition as to why is this something you want to listen to. And so a lot of the storytelling is there to, in my opinion, support a point. So I want to know what my point is. I'm creating the relationship using FQ3C. I'm pairing them up, and I say this story makes sense to connect a person with their FQ3C and bring them into this world. And when they're brought into this world, all of a sudden it becomes a magical experience that they've never actually had before in reality. But because I'm bringing it to them, they're able to experience a wow factor in that moment, similar to what you might have just experienced within just this short story.
Yeah, I love it. So you take frequency, quality, consistency, continuity, and clarity, give them this enough data points basically to say, this is now not only plausible, it's logical. How all these things are making it more believable. People are like starting to know, like, and trust you because it's all of the data points coming together. And then you take those values and you say, well, what's yours? And you start to connect with others, their FQ3C as well. And being able to make those connections, that's where you are taking this framework and not saying, hey, this is just for me. This is saying, well, this is for you as well.
Yes.
Am I hearing you right?
Yeah, absolutely. And to go even a little step further, there are some things that almost everybody experiences in life. There are plenty of things that people feel like they're the only person in the world who's ever experienced something. Right? So what do you find is more valuable in your life? The thing that everybody experiences, or the thing that only maybe you've experienced?
Oh, rarity. It's only you've experienced. That's the thing that pops into my mind.
So in a discovery period of when talking to somebody, before I'm going to teach them, coach them, train them, or tell them a story, whatever it is, I really am trying to search for those unique points, those unique perspectives that they would feel is their highest quality, if you will. And that's what they value and they believe. They believe I'm the only person, and they value that rarity, whether that's a trauma that they want to hold on to, or whether that's going to be something of an experience that they're like, I don't think anybody else has ever had this before. It could be positive. It could be considered quote unquote negative, right? Yeah. And so when choosing even the story, know that you can do generalities and you're nice and safe. But if you really want to be able to touch the heart, you really want to bring it to something that somebody is going to relate with, and you're going to build a relationship faster, sooner, specifically in storytelling, that finding that unique factor for them is a massive win. that you can leverage again for, could be sales. It could be just trying to connect with somebody sooner, make them like you more. It could be used for all sorts of things. We naturally are built to tell stories. The challenge is are you understanding what the other person needs to feel like the story that was told to them was powerful?
That's beautiful. My storytelling framework, one of the things I always am focusing on, it's in step 2, to make sure that you relate what you are sharing with your audience. If it's not relatable and it's not something that actually is translated in such a way that they absolutely concretely know that this is something that matters to them, it's going to go in one ear and out the other.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hearing from you is you're using this framework to help your story be relatable through data points, through things that you're like, I can actually track whether or not they believe me because of X, Y, or Z.
Yes.
That's excellent. That's a
Absolutely.
beautiful way to think about this. So as far as optimizing a story, we talked about the basic framework, how you can use it. And now I don't even know, was this a real story or not? It feels real. Was that a real story? Or just make that off the cuff?
Completely.
Okay. Excellent. I love it. I love improvisational theater, improv. That's excellent. So when you are taking your experiences and you are crafting these stories, I want to hear, what are you doing as far as allowing people to see, feel, hear, touch, all the visual, audio, kinesthetic experiences that they need to be able to make it as real as possible? What do you do to make sure that there's significant moments versus things that you're like, well, that really doesn't need to be in there?
That's a great question. So it really comes down to clarity as a variable. When defining clarity, it's all about barriers, right? I am not trying to give them too much information. I'm just trying to remove barriers from them having clarity, right? So
bars. That was good. That was bars. Just trying to remove barriers from them. That's what clarity is. That's excellent.
yeah. And a lot of people mistake that if I just bombard a bunch of information to you, that's going to make it so that you're obviously going to be able to figure out or know or understand, feel, connect. That's not true. A lot of people actually do the exact opposite, which is unload on them. And they're going, I didn't even have time to think or understand or synthesize what I just heard, what was here. And now they're stuck in some sort of backlog processing in their brain and their information overload. So being able to have, in my opinion, a direct objective and saying, if I can just get them to understand specifically this one thing, which I would say is measurable, has a quality, valuable belief factor, is something that's consistent, something that has continuity within themselves, and then also, of course, is how many barriers are removed from that piece that I'm trying to get them to. Now I'm able to count backwards the amount of barriers that they may have right now. I need to have them connect with the F, connect with the Q, connect with the C, connect with the C2, and connect with the C3. And it's just barriers is all it is. So if I'm counting barriers in my head and I'm just checking them off, barrier 1, barrier 2, barrier 3, barrier 4. And if I can make a general assessment most of the time that a person may have 4 barriers, 5 barriers, however many in their way, just by the feedback of how they're interacting with me as well. Which is why I also love including questions, lots of questions, and bringing them into the story. And I think that that's kind of the next level. It's asking a question that makes it so that they're saying, oh, yeah, I actually relate to this. So, for example, had I initially been like, Brigham, do you enjoy, I guess, magic? Do you enjoy magic shows?
Yeah, that's great. I love magic.
Great. You loved it. What's the best magic show you've ever seen?
The best magic show I've ever seen, it's probably on America's Got Talent. I haven't seen one live in a while, but I've seen some really amazing things on that little 3-5 minute program that they do. Some awesome stuff.
I'll bet you that I have the best thing ever that you have never seen. And by the way, you got to go to Las Vegas to see it, because there's this guy who's over there at the Bellagio. So that asking a question, go, okay, I like magic. I enjoy magic. I saw something. And now I'm able to put a little lead in front of you and say, like, oh, yeah, well, I think I got something better. That puts a little challenge to you.
Yeah.
You go, yeah, are you sure?
Good.
Now you're even more engaged because you want to dive in. You want to test. You want to see, oh, yeah, is this really real? So as long as I'm able to check off now the FQ3Cs and make sure that the clarity is there, right? And the continuity is making so there's nothing that sounds like it's lying or whatever. Next thing you know, you're going to actually want to start engaging with the story. And that's another way to be able to get somebody in your stories to become even more real is, can you get that person to engage with it, not just place themselves there, but want to actually start speaking. They want to reach through that phone and start talking to you. They want to start asking the questions themselves. That's the next level, I'd say, of storytelling and story selling, is being able to know how to leverage their FQ3Cs, your FQ3C of the story, and then using questions, draw them in even further. Right.
Beautiful. I actually go into this in my book a little bit, the idea of engagement questions. I first learned this as a Mandarin Chinese teacher when I was teaching in high school for 7 years. It was so difficult at times to get kids to stay engaged. I discovered this idea that it's not about only saying, hey, raise your hand if this makes sense. That's the lowest level of engagement question. You can say, hey, touch your nose if you guys like X, Y, or Z. Like, oh, excellent. Or, hey, if this was something that was helpful for you, on a scale of 1 to 10, show me on your fingers what that's like. And saying, well, if 1, like, you're the worst teacher ever, I hate you. And then 10 was like, man, you're the best. I'm going to go throw money at you. Like, and then they have a playful way to engage with you. Anytime you use those types of engagement questions, just like you gave as an example as a hook, it allows your audience to be like, oh, that applies to me. Or I've been there, or, oh, that's not me. And they want to interact with you. If you're not interacting in a way that allows them to say, oh, this is me, I got this, and you're not getting closer and closer and more in alignment, you're losing your audience.
Yes.
You're disengaging.
Yeah.
So what are some of your favorite ways that you've been able to take either engagement questions or some of these ideas and make it very meaningful for your audience? It could be a strategy. It could be one of the things that you're like, man, this is a tip that I've found as a speaker or as an author. What comes to mind?
That is a great question. And you want me to tell you my number one?
Yeah, let's hear it. Or one of them. That might make it a little easier. One of them. This is the hack whenever you're like, oh, which one is it? One of your favorite ways to engage with the audience. Yeah.
One of my favorite ways to engage with the audience, I think, really comes down to knowing ahead of time, doing a lot of preparation. Sounds less fantastic, less exciting. I like to do a lot of preparation of knowing and understanding them first. So actually, most of the time, whenever I'll go on to any sort of speaking engagement, I'm actually probing the host and saying, what does your audience want? What do they actually want to engage with? What's the hole that I can fill? And just by knowing where I can fill a gap, then I can take some time myself to check my FQ3C and say, great, well, if this is what's missing, then what is the story, or what's the couple of nodes that I can bring to the table that will really activate it? The other trick is extremes. And I think this one's easier for probably people to, more fun, potentially do. I literally go as extreme as possible, and I do not hold back. So we're either going to go to death or we're going to absolute perfection, and then I'll find the middle. And what you'll find is most people have never thought about the full extremes to use the best for themselves. And it's also a whip action. So when you bring in that uncomfortable topic, they can't help but have a reaction. It's very strong. Right. And that strong reaction, especially when you go, okay, cool, I got you. Now I'm going to pull you to the place that we want to be. They'll come with you way faster. And then you can bring into the other extreme, and you're saying, great, I just showed you far left. I just showed you far right. All right, now let's bring it back to comfort zone. And they like that comfort zone. It's a lot like music, honestly. What you're going to do is create your first chord, which is the nice, simple chord, easy chord. Then you're going to do a little bit of dissonance. Then you're going to do a little bit of conflict. And then literally the word is a resolve.
A resolve. Like, that little sigh. You're like, thank you for the key change.
Yeah. So that the story is the same exact way. We love that ebb and flow. And if you're not able to think of the extreme, I would actually start thinking that way. The extremes is where we start to have that reaction. And when we have that reaction, we start wanting to fight. When we start wanting to fight, we're going to get engaged. When we start getting we're going to start learning, talking, enjoying, or fighting, whatever it is. And that's okay. That's great, actually. Let's work through this. And I find that it's through those extremities is when people are able to actually come to the truth more
Mm.
easily because we're exposing the truth at the ends, and then that makes it so what we're dealing with right now is not so big.
Beautiful. Here, one of the things that I learned as an actor was to play the opposite.
Mm.
A lot of times this is going to the extreme. If you're about to kiss someone, maybe you're just like, oh, I'm so mad at you. And then it's almost like that magnet you pulling away and then you come right back. It's because you went far in the other extreme that you actually gave them permission to come together. You're breaking that touch barrier. And it's one of those things that if you can play that skill well, that feels more realistic than almost anything else. Because
Yeah.
people don't just fall in love and it's all smooth roads. We almost always have these blips of like passion that's one way and then passion the other way. And like this needs to be part of our everyday conversation. When we're telling a story, if we
Yeah.
don't play the opposite, we don't hit those extremities like you're saying, we don't ever know where the boundaries are. If I
Yeah.
don't go here like, oh, my hand's now out off camera. Oh, now that my other hand's off camera. Now I know where I'm at.
Yeah.
It's so important. So I love that point. Wonderful.
And
Now, yeah, go ahead.
Go an extra 10%. That's my other thing is the extra 10%. If you're going from the extremities, almost always there's another thing beyond it. And you got to try and push for and grapple with that. And if you can bring a person to that point too, it's even more powerful. We love to live within what we feel is comfortable. And that ends up meaning that we're not able to grow as fast.
Right.
So growth is within the extra 10, extra 20 beyond it. And that's where you're able to start playing with the big boys, if you will. My favorite story is Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice, a kid who was just a brick, or I should say, he helped his dad with bricks. So his dad would like toss up bricks to him. He's on top of the building. He's grabbing these hard things. And this is as like a 5-year-old doing this, right? So if you can imagine a 5-year-old carrying one of those things and he has his brothers around. He's like trying not to kill them by dropping it accidentally. Like pretty intense, right? High stress already. And what he did is he took that work ethic and he brought that into football. What's interesting is he was not the fastest runner. He was not the best catcher, even technically. But he had one thing that made it so that he just completely dominated the NFL, and that was in his practice. He was there always early before everybody else, every time. Nobody could beat him. And then the other thing is that every single time that the ball touched his hands, there was a commitment level to going to that extra 10%, if you will. Everybody else would catch it, run 20, run 30, run 50 yards. And then they would go, that's good enough. And then they come back. That was their comfort level. He was like, I am defining the end. The end goal, the end point for me as a wide receiver is to touchdown. It's that end zone. I do not end until I'm in the end zone. And so even in practice, he would catch the ball and run to the end zone every time, period. Not one time did he not do this. Every time, end zone. Wow. And people were always wondering, like, how is it that he's able to go and break all these tackles and stuff? It's because his body became trained that he is not complete. He cannot stop going all out output until he has reached the end. And so he'd set all these scoring records. It's insane. But that's what I'm trying to talk about for people, like being able to define what you talk about, those barriers. That's actually removing barriers, right? What are the lines is removing barriers. And if you can get the definition of where's my beginning, where's my actual true end, true beginning, now you're going to be able to actually start playing with the entire field. And you're going to know the actual real demand that's required of you to accomplish whatever the heck it is and create a phenomenal story and be able to engage with, honestly, life at, I'd say, the maximum level that you can. You want maximum efficiency, maximum love, maximum health, maximum enjoyment, maximum wealth, whatever that looks like. Guess what? You got to go max.
Yeah. Sometimes we should cut ourselves so short on that. I had multiple people do this before, but if you've never seen this demonstration, I'm going to do it really quick for you guys. If I had every single one of you raise your hand as high as you can, a lot of people will raise their hand like this. But if I say, can you go a little higher? Everyone will be like, ugh.
Yep.
Everyone's got that extra stretch, that extra 10%, what you said. What if instead of thinking, oh, this is good enough, we actually go as far and as high as we possibly can, and we let our body stop us, not our mind stop us.
Yes.
That's the idea of leveling up, right? Go ahead.
Truth stop us. Don't let your perception stop you. Correct.
For sure. Now, in the last few moments we have together, what is another story? I mean, it could be a success story. It could be a challenge. What was something that you're like, I'm so proud that I was able to be part of this. It meant something more than just business. Could be, go ahead.
Meant something more than business.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll say this, and I'm going to really shorten this story because there's actually a lot to this one.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest events in my life was when I became an investment advisor facilitator for that Fortune 50 company. Yeah. And it's not for the reasons you may think. It's not because I reached the mountaintop. It was because I got to experience the full breadth of what it means to actually completely give my all. Mm. Many times in my life, I thought I had, and many more times, just like you were talking about, right? You know, put your hand higher, put your hand higher, put your hand higher. I was reaching my maximum to the point where I was sitting at my desk and I had a bag of bagels. And a lot of people thought they had the bagels for stacking. That's not true. I was so exhausted that in between my calls, I would end up putting my head on my forehead on my bagels. That was my pillow.
That's amazing. What a great visual.
I'd be sitting there and I remember thinking, like, I've put out thousands of applications. I've tried everything I can, literally 0 responses. And it all came down to I couldn't figure out how to get past the back end, right? Mm. Thankfully, God had given me a different strategy, if you will. And that was, I learned that if you go out and you just say what it is you want, and this is not like the standard, speak it into existence. It was a much more deliberate of, in my interview with my managers, if they were asking me questions, I'd say, I want you to know that I'm not here for the long term. I want you to know that I'm here to get to the facilitation role. And then I would ask them, can you tell me that this is a path I can get to the facilitation role? And I provide my value a lot of times because I was not trying to stay there. I wasn't trying to be just a regular worker. And so I would do that with everybody on my floor. And I'm talking like hundreds of people. Every single time the conversation come up, it was, I want to be a facilitator. I want to be a facilitator. I want to be a facilitator. Who can you connect with? How can I get there? I was just gathering information. And eventually everybody just knew that Shane was in the 401k department and he wanted to actually be in the facilitator role. Right. And so I'd done everything that I could. Here I am. And next thing you know, I have 5 people come up to me from completely different departments. One day, and they're like, hey, we saw that there's this one particular role. You need to apply. And I was like, I remember, I was like, I don't even know if I have energy to apply to even one more application at this point. And it took 5 people, is the point, to even give me the motivation to decide, okay, I'm going to do this, to get that last inch. And in doing so, it was incredible because God ended up taking that moment and showing me that sometimes you have to completely surrender and surrender to what is outside of yourself to be able to then get what it is that you had been pursuing all along. And it was in that surrender of me going, like, all I can think about is bagels right now.
I want a bagel too. No, that's good.
That those 5 people who came along ended up saying, hey, we know how hard you've been working. We know how hard you've been trying to push for this. We literally know exactly what you want. Again, that's FQ3C. And I'd been saying it every day religiously for over a year at that point, that once they found it, they wanted to bring it to me. And next thing you know, I had somebody who was in the department in the facilitation, and they came up to me and they're like, hey, let me see who the hiring manager is. We take a look at the hiring manager. Guess what? That's the same hiring manager that they had when they got their role. They're like, I'll help you write your resume. Guys, when I tell you that it wasn't help me write my resume. It was, I was still in bagel land and we were at Olive Garden and they wrote my resume.
Nice.
And then when they're doing that, they're like, okay, great. By the way, I know exactly what you should say in your interviews. They coached me on exactly what to say in my interviews. And then after doing that, and I still remember, I was just like, I'm so tired. I'm so exhausted this whole entire time. I had nothing left. And they're pulling me at this point. I might as well have been a dead person in the wagon or something like that, pulled by them. And then I get to my interview, right? Somehow I got past the walls. We got past the gates. I have my interview. And then I'm sick as a dog. Oh. I'm coughing every other word practically. and I had almost no energy. I was like, I don't even know I'll be able to stand up for 15 minutes to do any sort of speaking or facilitation. This is gonna be crazy. I show up. Next thing you know, the technology is not working. Their cameras aren't going up and down. They're like, don't worry, you can do this sitting down. I'm like, oh, okay, I can sit down now. So I'm sitting down. I do my whole entire interview. I'm coughing and coughing and coughing. I'm like, I can't even hear myself while I'm speaking. How can they hear me while I'm speaking? And this whole entire job is about being able to talk to people. And
it's awesome.
And with all that said, I still ended up beating out all these other people who had degrees, who had all the experience, had all the background, who had all these licenses, everything else. And they were older than me, 45, 50 years old, all this other stuff. And I will say that God is actually the one who ended up giving me that job, for sure. I do not want to also take away, though, that had it not been for me maxing out, literally maxing out, there would not have been all those different pieces and people so willing and so inspired and so interested and so dedicated to even my success and getting me to where I wanted to go, that I probably would not have gotten that role, and I would not have been able to say, yeah, I reached the summit. For me, the summit was that. And that was such a huge, powerful story for me. And again, has been a huge impact on my life. And without that story, I honestly wouldn't even have discovered FQ3C. Because learning what real max out and surrender is what it took to be able to just sit there and say, what's the truth? What is the reality? What is our actual behaviors, and not get swayed by all the other noise. I think Kevin O'Leary says it best. You got to figure out what's the difference between the noise and the signal. And by not getting strayed by all that stuff, able to just boil it down to exactly what is, and then let's work with what is only. Get out the impurities. Let's work with the real clay, or let's work with the real gold. Let's work with the malleable resources. And now we can actually discover the truth for what it is, right? So
wonderful.
That's one of my favorite stories.
That's a great story. Going all in, making sure that you are maxing out literally in your career and your energy, putting the head on the bagels. Like,
yeah,
that's such a great visual. I think that needs to be on one of your books, man. The head on the bagel, like make an ebook at least. Like, that's so funny. I love that visual, but it's also one of those, you can see who you surrounded yourself with too. It's so important, not just having a battle buddy, but having people that are there to support you, a community that loves you and is going all in on your success, because you're all in on your own success.
And
now,
their success.
You gotta remember, their success. Absolutely.
I was not only telling them what I was doing, but I also was saying, how can I help you get where you want to go? And that was every day. So I was creating calculators. I was going the extra mile. I was doing all this extra stuff that was completely outside of what would have been, quote unquote, beneficial for me. And it's because of that extra, 10% that we're talking about, that you can such a strong network of people who like to reciprocate it. And if you think about it this way, I had hundreds of people that I had communicated with, talked to. Out of those hundreds of people, five were the ones who came to me when they saw the opportunity and wanted to reciprocate. This is not saying that humans aren't bad or bad nature or aren't going to do anything, but it is to say that not everybody's looking all the time for your shoulder. Not everybody's in that position. Not everybody, they have other priorities, other things that are in their mind. And so you do have to be able to also understand there is a numbers game. And the best way to play that numbers game is to do the max, so that it's so clear. Nobody has any idea other than what it is that is absolutely what you're going for, what you're gunning for, what you are valuing. And then, of course, being willing to reciprocate it as much and as fast as possible. Because you know what? You could be part of somebody else's story where you were one of those 5 people who showed up and ended up making it so that they were able to reach that summit. And that's another incredible feeling that you can be engaged with, and is another aspect of the story that I think I would challenge everybody here to think about. I had a lot of different variables, a lot of different pieces. Can you put yourself into all those different people, all those different times, all those different circumstances? And if you can, you are surely way closer to being able to tell a good quality story.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing how you optimize stories and how this framework is something that anybody can take and like elevate their story, level up their story because it's so impactful, so needed and necessary. Thank you for taking the time for not just those 16 days to put your story into a codified way that people can consume it, but
Yeah.
making it readily available. Because a lot of times people are like, oh, this idea is so important, but it's only for my organization.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about authors like yourself, about people that care about others truly, is you take the time to put your energy and effort out there so that others can get the benefit. Whether they buy your services or not, you still are giving and giving and giving. So thank you for that generosity. Where can people find your book?
They can go, it's only found on fq3c.com. We are not publishing it yet. We actually have some psychologists who are working through it to make sure that it's good for clinical patients right now. So it's in its working format, but you still can go and purchase the working document right now, have access, read it right away. We want to make sure that everybody who hears these stories and how can I get this, that you can have the key to unlock all those doors that you're looking for. So fq3c.com/book or fq3c.com/audiobook. Either one will work and you'll be able to get access to either format. So that is the only way that you can get it right now. We will end up posting and publishing some ARCs eventually once these psychologists have done their job. And then we will be publishing later on. Our goal is we want to get a New York Times bestsellers designation. And so that really actually means that we need about 10,000 pre-sales. So you guys are actually going to be helping get this out to even more people by getting in early. And there's almost no money that's made from book purchases, just so you guys know. It's pennies. There's no life-changing event that's really going to happen from this, right? So when you are purchasing this book, I really want you to understand that you are purchasing this for yourself, for your family, for your future, and also for the betterment of everybody else here. FQ3C really is the only tool that is coming into the marketplace right now. And we have confirmation from literally the government on this, okay? Mm-hmm. And even Forbes magazine agrees with us on its application that there is nothing out there to help a person quantify, give them a direct roadmap, a GPS, if you will, of their own individual behaviors that they themselves can use for themselves. Everything else out there right now is all about statistics and events that have already happened. It's all about looking at this bird's eye view. But the individual is really where we make the change. And so please definitely get the book. We want as many people to get this tool, get this mentality, see that switch. And we've been seeing successes across the board. So if you're going, oh, this might not work for me, listen, we're already helping out in the suicide prevention arena. We're already helping out in autism, ADHD. We literally, our psychologists, every one of them who've come in have been like, wow, this is something that we need as a tool in our practices.
Awesome.
And it's so far, we've not found any circumstance where it's not beneficial because it's tackling the core of what matters. And that is your behavior. Your behavior is what determines the outcome. Your behavior and your understanding of the truth around you is what determines your capability to move within your circumstances. And so this is that tool that helps you get that GPS. So please buy the book. We'd love to be able to get this out there to as many people as possible. New York Times designation is going to be our fastest route to getting it into everybody's hands. So yes.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I'm going to encourage that as well. Go out there, get the book. It's going to be phenomenal. If you got some value from this, just imagine how much value is in those pages. Years of experience. And one of the things you do when you are reading great books is you are taking decades of experience and compressing it into days. Mm-hmm. It's a pressure cooker for your experiences. And that's why I love great frameworks like this. I am encouraging every single one of you guys, go check out that book. Make sure that we share a lot of love and appreciation for Shane for coming and sharing his life work. I'm so appreciative of you for being on today. And like always, guys, if you want to overcome your stage fright, it is in your power. And one of the biggest ways that I've been able to help people do that is by understanding the reasons why stage fright costs you and why you must fix it. So make sure you get the ebook, connect with me more, and so grateful to have you guys. Keep leveling up your life and everything you do, and God bless.
God bless everybody. Thanks, Brigham.